Quinn,
Matchew,
what are we doing today, buddy?
we are doing a little KDM modification.
So, as you may know, Quinn drove this car on Lime Rock with the way it's set up right now.
For an episode of the Slip Angle.
Yep. And how did that go?
Come on. Yeah, I just can't do it. Sorry, Matchew.
It was a little, left a little to be desired.
A little pushy?
It was very understeered.
Yeah, very understeered. So the stock suspension, you can't really get much camber out of this thing.
Yep.
It's a McPherson strut, and it does have camber bolts, but you can't even get like a full degree of negative camber in the front, and I think that's.
And what are these aligned with from the factory?
They're aligned with like 0.75 degrees of front camber, more rear camber, more negative camber in the rear.
And what's the rear at?
The rear is at a degree and a half.
Okay,
I
so
believe.
a couple things to make note of right there. So all my cars, the setup, I typically prefer at least a half a degree to 1 degree more negative camber in the front than in the rear. And the reason for that, and now this really comes down to driver style preference. When you have a car that is aligned with more rear camber, what happens is two things. At the limit of grip, is the car safer? Yes, because it's going to want to understeer under those higher speed situations. But there's a big but here, and this is the caveat. The cars get very out of shape, unhappy, and I would argue borderline dangerous if you try to do bigger slip angle on them and correct it, because what happens is the front will regain its front grip faster. So usually when say if you're oversteering to the left, the front will bite and then you go and you understeer off in the other direction. Now this bit me years ago on my Z4M coupe, and I hit a curb on the street with the stock alignment, which was negative 1 degree in the front, negative 2 in the rear, and I did exactly that. Came out big angle, snapped back, and the front caught traction. I understeered across the street, thank God I didn't hit anybody, and I nosed into the curb and I destroyed the whole rear driver's side suspension on that.
Yikes.
But luckily it was an easy replacement. No issues other than that. Nothing got hit in the body. As bad as it sounds, it really wasn't too bad.
Could have been way worse.
Could have been way worse. But the point here is that I don't like that sort of alignment. When you have less camber in the rear, the cars rotate smoother, they rotate more predictably, more gracefully, and they're much easier to drive. And a lot of times, more front camber is preferred anyways because it aids that turning. So really, when you see somebody suggesting an alignment that has less camber in the front than in the rear, it's for newbie drivers who are not ready or not comfortable to explore those bigger slip angles, and it makes the car push at higher speed. But again, if you're a more experienced driver and you want to really be able to have the car do whatever you want and be able to control it at the limit, it is very, very important to change the alignment. And you'll see in some upcoming episodes, one of the fastest cars that we tested had an alignment like this. It was a supercharged ND. And it did exactly that situation that I just mentioned when I was trying to check the balance at the limit. And I went off into the dirt a little bit because of that. So that video will be coming out soon.
So for this car, I really like the way the suspension's set up right now. It's on the stock R-Spec dampers, and it has a set of Progress springs. It's a very mild setup. It works really well on the street. I didn't want to move on to coilovers with this car necessarily just yet. So to get some more negative camber in the front, what we are going to be installing today is a set of tension arms and lower front control arms. These are what hold the spindle together in the front, and we're gonna be able to add some negative camber into the front of this car without having to switch to coilovers and the adjustable top hats.
Yep, and then you also said you're gonna get a little bit of a track increase in the rear.
Yep.
So that's another thing, and I'm sorry, in the
Yeah.
front. And that's another thing to make note of, is that the track will also dictate an understeer, oversteer. So typically cars that have a lot of power and rear-wheel drive cars that have a lot of power and are prone to oversteer on power, the manufacturers will run a stagger. Like a lot of BMWs are staggered from the factory. Having a narrower track or smaller tires in the front than in the rear will introduce some understeer. So if you push the track out in the front, or you switch up to a square wheel and tire setup, you will reduce that understeer as you're making the track even front and rear. So every car is a little bit different. Miatas like square fitment. FDRX7, square fitment. People run staggers on FDRX7s, but the car is set up so well and is very beautifully balanced that like you don't need it. RX8, same thing, you don't need a stagger. I mean, maybe if you're 650 wheel horsepower and like you're really struggling to put power down and the car's just like a joke, maybe. But like car like my AP1 S2000 likes a little bit of a stagger. That car at high speed on track, like with a square setup, and again, like I haven't done all the corrections to get rid of some of the AP1's like leeriness, like that car would be dangerous on track without a little bit of a stagger. So I have a very, very small stagger. It's not even as big as the factory one, but it's still there, so.
And I could have switched to a square setup on this car. Some of the guys do it. It brings out the, there's not a lot of room for width in the front. So that you do compromise, like you have to go to a wider wheel in the front, and that does get really close to both the fender and the McPherson strut itself. I already have these wheels. It's a staggered setup. I like the way they look. I like the way they fit. I thought that this would just be a better solution.
Yep.
And so we're going to install these, and then we're going to go get the car aligned.
This is real race car stuff here.
Right.
Let's get into it.
Started. All right, so here are some of the tools we're going to be using today. This is a ball joint separator right here. So this will be able, hopefully, be able to pop the ball joints out of the spindle. I also have a tie rod separator as well. I may need one of these for the tie rods. I think I'm just going to take the tie rods out just to get a little bit more clearance in there. And just in case, I also have a set of these pullers as well. So all these tools are somewhere around like $20 each, so it's really not that big a deal, and it's always nice to have them, so I definitely recommend getting them. So all right, let's get to work. So the best thing I could say if you're gonna try and do a job like this is, well, one, take the car right to an alignment shop. That's the next thing you gotta do with this car. Don't eyeball it and get as close as you can and then drive it around for tons of miles. You're gonna wear out your tires. There's no way you can get this to what factory spec can be just by eyeballing it. I'm gonna get these as close as I can to the length of the factory arms. We are going to the alignment shop. That's the next place I'm taking this car, and so I'm just going to get these as close as I can to the factory ones. All right, so arms are installed. You did notice I brought in the transmission jack. I just wanted to, before I tighten the control arms onto the subframes, I just wanted to put some tension on the suspension, like upward tension, like the way the car is gonna sit when you have the car on the ground, before I tighten those. So yeah, I did that, and this side's complete. It's looking pretty good. Sway bar should clear and everything. I didn't want to disconnect the end links because I actually set preload on these end links. They're adjustable end links, and I actually sat in the car, waited for it to zero out the sway bar, and then I adjusted this so that the balance between the sway bar is even with me in the car. So yeah, so I just loosened the sway bar here just to get the clearance I needed for the lower control arm. Yeah, all we're gonna do now is just rinse and repeat for the driver's side. And that's it. All right, we're done. I think my measurements were a little off. I mean, I think we have a little bit of toe out. I don't know if you could see that in the camera, but it looks like it from my eyes. Even on the other side too, just a little bit of toe out. But it'll be fine. We're going straight to the.
I'll drive like a Miata.
Yep.
But just be comfortable.
Oh, there you go. So, yep. Next stop. Get an alignment done.
Yep. And am I plugging us?
No.
Oh.
I'm just doing a weird thing. Watch, we'll transition. I'm gonna spin, and then watch.
I started the pump accelerating with like half a tank, like it would start the pump. But it's still not good. So I bought.
Hey, buddy.
What's up, Matchew?
All right, so we got this thing up on the alignment rack.
She's dialed in right now.
Yeah, I did my best. You know, I was eyeballing these factory control arms to the adjustables, and yeah, I mean,
I would run it. Send it.
yeah,
Full send.
full send.
Doesn't even need anything.
Yeah, so we got a little bit more front camber in the front. That's like what they come with from the factory. Let's see, caster is about normal on this side. I think it's like 7.5 is what they have.
Yeah.
Positive
7.5.
caster. And toe is way off. We knew that though, eyeballing it. So right now we're gonna go for about 3 degrees. Negative 3 degrees in the front. A little bit of toe in.
Yep.
And then yeah, and then just align everything.
Like an eighth of toe in.
Eighth. That's what I've been doing for everything.
You could do a 16th if you want to be a little like extra ricer.
Yeah, I mean this thing doesn't really have like that sharp of a turn in, right? A little bit of toe out might be okay.
No, I mean on the highway here, like it was a little darty, but like it wasn't that bad. Like with toe being like that, like whacked out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Sick.